Welcome to the 2020-2021 ANSI Annual Business Meeting. The program will begin in approximately 2.5 minutes. We hope to see you all next May in Washington, D.C. as World Standards Week celebration continues with the ANSI Leadership and Service Awards ceremony honoring the 2020-2021 awardees, the postponed U.S. celebration of World Standards Day, and an issue-focused conference. Enjoy today's sneak peek of the honorees who were named as award recipients during 2020 and 2021. The first half of this event is being recorded and will be posted publicly. For those who do not wish to be recorded, please keep your audio on mute and your camera off throughout the event. If you are not an active speaker, your audio should remain muted. Our tech team will monitor to assist with keeping all lines muted throughout the event. There will be a question and answer period following the formal remarks. Questions can be submitted at any time via the chat. You may send the questions to me, Jim McCabe, directly or to the group chat. During the Q&A, you may also use the raised hand function to indicate you wish to be unmuted to ask a question directly. After the Q&A, we will share a link via the chat for ANSI members to vote on the new slate of directors at large for the Institute's board. Once again, we look forward to celebrating these award honorees on May 18th, 2022. Ladies and gentlemen, the program is about to begin.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to ANSI's 2021 Annual Business Meeting. My name is Phil Piquera, and I'm Vice President of Global Standards for Underwriters Laboratories. It's also my great pleasure to serve as the chair of the ANSI Board of Directors. Though we had hoped to be together in person this year, it was the safer and more responsible choice for us to go digital again. So here we are at ANSI's second virtual celebration of World Standards Week. Thank you for logging in from your homes and offices to share this hour with Joe Battia and myself as we look back on a most unusual year and look ahead to what's in store for the coming months. Before we continue, let me tell you that you will be receiving today an email with a link to ANSI's new annual report. This document is filled with details and links and videos and other elements that help to tell the great story of our broad and diverse organization. I know you'll enjoy reviewing it, which is why Joe and I are going to focus our comments on this year's highlights rather than the details. Please feel free to ask questions in the chat at any time. After the formal remarks, we'll spend a few minutes addressing your comments before moving over to the member forum meetings. I'd like to begin by thanking Russ Cheney, my predecessor, for having led the Institute so successfully during the past 3 years. He left big shoes to fill, and I'm grateful to continue building upon the solid foundation left by Russ and all the chairs before him. So some recent accomplishments of note. Our relationships with members of the new administration and Congress are developing quickly. Joe will fill you in more about the exciting developments in DC. ANSI's capacity building efforts are creating positive, lasting impact for US and global communities. And we completed the update and publication of the 4th edition of the United States Standard Strategy. Every 5 years, we dissect USSS, reviewing it from cover to cover to create a current roadmap of strategies and tactics to support U.S. growth, innovation, and quality of life. Now, I've been involved in ANSI activities for more than a decade, and for much of that time, I've been a board member and an officer. But serving as member of the Strategy Task Force reminded me just how complex and diverse our community really is. What a significant accomplishment to have achieved a unified vision of how members from every corner of our community can work together to build a more competitive and safe nation. And we're already making steady progress on the goals to 1, strengthen participation by government in voluntary consensus standardization. 2, support emerging national priorities. 3, improve the responsiveness of the standards system to consumers. And 4, build a standards literate workforce. But there's much more to be done. And progressing the strategy's priority areas will be a major focus during my tenure as chair. I am excited to partner with you to drive our national and global agendas forward. Thank you in advance for your commitment, for your dedication, and for your participation in our work together. And thanks too to my fellow board officers and members for their past and future guidance, and to Joe and all of his staff for their support. On that note, it is my great pleasure to turn the screen over to ANSI President and CEO, Joe Batia, to continue this report. Joe?
Thank you, Phil, and thank you everyone for logging in this afternoon. I'm really excited to share with you a summary of ANSI's recent accomplishments, an overview of what we're working on now, and a glimpse of what's on the horizon. Some updates may be familiar, others may be from a part of our organization that is not well known to you. Put your questions in the chat at any point. Following my remarks, we will have a few minutes to address the questions before we transition over to the forum meetings. Later today, you'll receive an email link to ANSI's 2020-2021 annual report. That important document will take a deeper look at very many of the initiatives that I will introduce in my remarks today. For now, let's just start with an obvious statement. We live in interesting times. These past 18 months have illuminated the resilience and power of human cooperation. Together, yet distanced apart, we grappled with the incredible challenges and saw awe-inspiring achievements. Vaccines rolled out in record time. Advancement in AI drove innovative healthcare solutions. We even saw private citizens launched into space. Standards and conformity assessment played an essential role in enabling these solutions. Today, we celebrate all those accomplishments. When I speak with other CEOs, I often hear the same refrain. Great progress is being made, but not always at the pace we had hoped for. This is where the creative spirit of our community shines. ANSI and its members are hard at work to foster progress on activities that previously relied on sustained in-person interaction. After all, relationships and consensus building are both essential ingredients of standards work. I'll tell you more about those specific efforts in a few minutes, but you will hear the consistent themes of innovation, connectivity, and speed throughout my comments. Connectivity comes to mind when I think of the keen interest that the Biden administration and Congress have taken in the work of our community. ANSI staff and members have been meeting with the agency and congressional staff to ensure that the government officials understand the power of the private sector-led standardization and the robust and responsive foundation it provides for U.S. innovation and growth. Our messages are being heard and reflected in the new legislation and federal initiatives. Equally important are efforts to keep problematic language out of the draft legislation that is being proposed. This spring, an ANSI coordinated effort with some of our members, including companies, trade associations, and standards organizations, helped transition a very concerning legislative proposal for the government oversight of private sector-led standardization into a positive statement that recognize the U.S. leadership in technical standards. These positive statements were ultimately reflected in the Senate-approved U.S. Innovation and Competition Act. Because knowledge is power in DC and things can happen quickly, we have made it a priority to keep our members informed about the relevant legislative activities. Our new Government Relations and Public Policy newsletter is a members-only resource that provides a roundup and strategic analysis of significant federal and congressional activities. If you haven't already, I encourage you to subscribe. Today, more and more countries around the globe are jockeying to influence and define the future transformative technologies. Leaders in Congress, executives in corner offices, and prominent think tanks are recognizing the important role that ANSI and standards and conformance play in these areas. Michelle Rozo of the White House's National Security Council is joining us again today, her second meeting with ANSI members this week. She's here to talk about interagency discussions on efforts being considered with the intent to strengthen the public-private partnership in standards development for emerging technologies. If you missed her at the National Policy Advisory Group yesterday, she will be at the Government Member Forum meeting this afternoon. This attention on our community is outstanding, even if we sometimes wonder why all the attention now. From its first publication in the year 2000 to the fourth edition approved last December, the U.S. Standards Strategy has always pointed out that global competition for technology-driven advantages is growing. The strategy's 12 pillars provide direction as we ask ourselves the important question: how can U.S. compete better in this increasingly complex global economy? One major priority is our sustained and focused leadership engagement on the global stage. I'm proud of the fact that U.S. is one of the most active and influential members of ISO and IEC. We participate in more than 90% of IEC technical activity and close to 80% of ISO's more diverse technical work. There are some recent developments that need our attention and cooperative action. Whether your business is healthcare, manufacturing, lighting, or ICT, there are more standards and conformity assessment activities to track. For many, the knowledge gap is widening as standards professionals retire and new staff is brought on to succeed them. That's why ANSI is prioritizing education and training efforts to help grow the standards talent pipeline. Our efforts are focused on attracting and upskilling the next generation who will carry essential work into the future. We are revitalizing training offerings for standards participants at every level to support effective participation in domestic and international activities. Members of ANSI Committee on Education partnered with SDOs to update a directory of educational resources. They also worked with universities to create a directory of courses that integrate standards into curricula. And the committee will host 2 virtual simulation workshops providing college students with hands-on knowledge of the standards development process. On Friday, the U.S. National Committee to the IEC will host the soft launch of its new National Young and Emerging Professionals program that builds on its professional mentoring activities. Kudos to the USNC President Kevin Lippert and the committee members and staff who brought these 2 programs to life. Global market development is another component of economic resilience and competitiveness, and it holds the potential to improve health, safety, and quality of life for billions of people. Since the start of the pandemic, governments have been scrambling to increase to critical medical equipment such as diagnostic test kits, ventilators, and PPE. But those products can't be effectively deployed without a strong regulatory framework and standards infrastructure. Through the public-private partnerships, ANSI and its members have been active in capacity building efforts in more than 15 countries and regions. Under the Standards Alliance program with USAID, we are supporting COVID response and recovery through medical device standardization and good regulatory practices. Spearheaded with ANSI member AdvaMed, The project is increasing patients' access to needed PPE and other medical technologies and fostering private sector engagement in medical technology regulatory space. Through our USTDA-sponsored program in the Indo-Pacific region, we are coordinating workshops that support trade and development in green technologies, transportation, smart cities, medical devices, ICT, and more. In an activity that will increase market predictability and opportunities for US businesses and technologies, our program with the USAID led 2 communities in Cote d'Ivoire in Africa to develop local sustainable development plans following the ISO standard 37101. And a Standards Alliance program in Senegal has built lasting training curriculum for solar mini grid installation maintenance and efficiency. I would like to thank everyone who has taken part in these capacity building initiatives and encourage others to get involved. The strength of these programs lies in broad participation from both the public and private sectors. Growth continues in the American national standards arena. We have now approved more than 13,000 documents as American national standards, continuing our growth year to year. And even in these difficult times, we also maintain our roster of nearly 240 ANSI accredited standards developers. Each year, many thousands of individual volunteers participate in the development of maintenance and standards development. Here's another impressive number. The ANSI Federation is now more than 1,300 members strong. Even during the pandemic, we saw a 6% year-to-year membership increase. Organizations recognized the strategic benefit of membership and took advantage of new opportunities to engage and participate virtually. There's always more room at the ANSI table. If you're listening today and you're not yet a member, this is my personal invitation to you for you to join us. The ANSI Federation is a robust community that welcomes all emerging industry sectors, new constituents, and underrepresented groups. Speaking of the underrepresented groups, let's talk about consumers. Their input directly enhances the market relevance of standards for many products and services. Yet, despite all the positives that result from their involvement, the stakeholder group is often underrepresented. So over the past 2 years, we brought standards developers, consumers, consumer advocacy groups together. And in a series of ANSI roundtables, we examined challenges and opportunities from both sides. Input from the roundtables shaped the development of a new guide to help our accredited SDOs foster consumer participation and long-term engagement in their standards committee. ANSI is deploying new staff and resources to increase the visibility and the impact of consumer-related programs and opportunities. In fact, our new consumer and legislative outreach manager will be introduced this afternoon at the Consumer Interest Forum meeting. Tomorrow, we are partnering with the U.S. Consumer Product Safety Commission and UL to host a workshop that will explore how and why the health and safety impacts of voluntary consensus standards should be quantified and promoted. The end goal is to build upon existing approaches to fuel future collaboration on measurement methodologies. Laurie Lacasio, the Vice President for Research at the University of Maryland, who has been nominated by President Biden to serve as the next director of NIST, will provide a keynote address. Our partnership with CPSC and UL is a great example of the public-private cooperation that underpins our standardization system. The public-private partnership sustains current industries and drives emerging technologies. Here are a few examples. Artificial intelligence became vitally important in healthcare during the pandemic. As predictive tools track the virus's spread and machine learning helps speed vaccine development, ANSI convened a cross-sector meeting to assess standards needs for AI in healthcare. The resulting workshop reports highlighted opportunities to support governance frameworks and risk management, as well as data trust and transparency. A follow-up workshop is in the works for later this year with plans to create a roadmap that will coordinate and accelerate the AI data standardization for healthcare. Nanotechnology continues to deliver innovative applications for nearly every industry sector. ANSI's Nanotechnology Standards Panel keeps pace by helping US standards developers collaborate and further work on advanced materials at the nanoscale. These materials are used in products we use every day, like medical devices, drug delivery systems, water purification, and packaging. Commercial spaceflight made headlines this year as billionaires rode the rockets to the edge of the atmosphere. As space tourism picks up speed, ANSI convened a meeting of more than 300 attendees from across the US and around the world to discuss policy instruments, industry standards, best practices, and opportunities needed to help the commercial space industry take the flight. The report's observations acknowledge the need for standards and best practices to keep up with the rapid rate of industry's growth, as well as cooperation required. As technologies like these continue to advance at warp speed, every industry and segment of society is moving toward greater digitalization, and so must the development and consumption of standards content. The ANSI annual report provides more examples of the fascinating technical work US experts are leading in AI, digital twin technologies, and the digital economy. One of the largest and most prolific technical committees in the ICT space is the Joint Technical Committee of ISO and IEC. The US holds the key leadership role in JTC1, with Phil Winblum of Intel serving as its chair and ANSI as its secretariat. Over the 30 years of its existence, JTC1 has produced 3,200 standards that are used globally. Taking another look at our own community, the application of machine learning technologies will digitally transform standards development and the way every major industry uses standards in their manufacturing process or service delivery. What's more, digital transformation is helping to grow participation in standards development, increase efficiencies, and speed time to market. Earlier this year, ANSI hosted a joint meeting of our company organizational members to showcase various smart standards and digital transformation efforts underway within the community. In the global arena, I'm honored to be one of the 10 selected individuals to serve on a steering group of ISO Council members that will develop an innovative and sustainable project plan for ISO Smart Standards. This critical initiative is also being coordinated with IEC. The digital path forward is filled with opportunities and challenges. On the plus side, we have seen that virtual standards development efforts are engaging a greater number of participants, and at times, the standard work may even be progressing faster in this COVID environment. But juggling conferences across the international time zones is really not easy. And as I mentioned earlier, relationships and consensus building is complicated. Clearly, virtual or hybrid models will continue to play a significant role in standards development after the pandemic ends. This afternoon, the ANSI Organizational Member Forum will launch a discussion about hybrid meetings and how they can fuel the work of standards committees in a socially distanced world of limited travel. It's the first in a series of conversations that will explore the changes and opportunities of hybrid meetings, from logistics and staff support to effective leadership and participation. There's much to learn from one another, and we're confident that great new ideas will come from that dialogue. ANSI also played a lead role in the joint ISO-IEC task force charged with the developing guidance for effective virtual and hybrid standards development meetings. The report was published in September and will be revisited and refined over time. If you'd like to see a copy, please email pr@ansi.org. Operationally, ANSI has been implementing a robust strategy to streamline and improve operations, guarantee our business continuity, and securely digitize the services delivered to our community. The centerpiece of our digital transformation is the new and improved platform, ANSI.org. Since we launched the new site in 2020, we have made continual enhancements to the content, functionality, and design. Our thanks to all of you who assisted with testing and provided useful feedback to us. We're also moving our information systems to a hybrid cloud architecture that will help us efficiently deliver innovative new services. And we are on track to complete our ISO 27001 implementation this year. We are committed to safeguarding our businesses and keeping our data and that of our members, partners, and constituents very well protected. Turning our attention now to ANSI affiliates, WorkRed is making major waves in workforce development at a time when the millions of workers are looking to retool, reskill, and find new employment. If you are not familiar with this affiliate, WorkRed is focused on improving the quality and effectiveness of U.S. credentialing system and building new opportunities for the workforce. In partnership with the George Washington Institute of Public Policy, WorkRed authored the first in a new series of reports exploring cybersecurity, IT, healthcare, and manufacturing certifications. In another new report, WorkRed shed light on how credentials can be very valuable reemployment tools for workers over the age of 50 who may face challenges such as job displacement or age discrimination. As the economy regains footing and workers prepare for a post-pandemic job market, WorkRed helped to identify strategies to align displaced workers with regional workforce needs as a member of the National Academies of Sciences, Engineering, and Medicine Committee. And with the goal of improving career outcomes for students, WorkRed and its partners completed a framework that lays the groundwork for how future students could earn industry certifications as they are pursuing their undergraduate degrees. You can learn more about the breadth of WorkRed's reach and its projects for the year ahead in our annual report. Industry and government alike look to accredit services provided by ANSI's affiliate, ANAB, to support trade and environmental protection, boost U.S. competitiveness and the workforce, and promote health, safety, and consumer confidence. I will share a few highlights. Providing quality assurance solutions amid the global health crisis, ANAB accredited ABM Industries' Enhanced Clean Training Program with a member of Dr. Anthony Fauci's team serving on ABM's Certificate Advisory Group. The accreditation helps assure greater confidence in health and safety as organizations, facilities, and other venues look to get back to business and begin the long-awaited road to recovery. The U.S. Food and Drug Administration recently approved ANAB to accredit testing laboratories that perform pre-market testing for medical device companies. The move increases the consistency and predictability in the FDA's approach to assessing conformance with FDA-recognized consensus standards and test methods. Supporting the expansion of high-quality apprenticeship in the U.S. and faster path to work, ANAB has now recognized Dallas College Industries' earlier recognized apprenticeship program pursuant to the U.S. Department of Labor standards. And here's a complex but interesting and very important achievement. This year, ANAB successfully underwent its largest and most complex peer evaluation following the unification of ANAB and ANSI accreditation programs in 2018. This peer assessment was conducted remotely by 21 evaluators and observers from accreditation bodies in 15 countries. Spanning 4 months, the evaluation resulted in no non-conformities and is now pending review for final approval by 2 regional cooperatives responsible for conducting this evaluation. It's quite an effort. Now, as I wrap up my formal remarks, I'm really proud to tell you that ANSI ended 2020 with operating revenues of $79.5 million, sustaining our revenue streams in a highly challenging year for businesses and organizations worldwide, not just us. We have been fiscally responsible, maintaining our focus on diversifying revenues and effectively managing our expenses. Even in these unique times, we were able to produce an operating surplus of more than $3 million and add to our board-mandated reserves requirement. ANSI and its affiliates have made progress on many more fronts this year, and we are very well positioned for the future. Because one of our most important priorities is safeguarding and strengthening the US standardization system, on behalf of our members and constituents, we have made an important decision not to increase the membership dues and the national and international activity assessments in the coming year, 2022. Be assured that we will maintain our continued focus on cost containment and efficiency enhancement measures that support the high quality service that you all count on from ANSI. Before we adjourn, I would like to thank Institute's Board of Directors for their leadership and guidance throughout the year. Special thanks are due to board officers who've been so generous with their time. The Institute's Vice Chairs, Dale Sear, Tim Klein, Mary McKeel, and David Miller, and our immediate past chairman, Russ Cheney. And of course, huge thanks go to our current chair, Phil Pecara, who's done an outstanding job in his first year in this role. I would also like to thank everyone who serves in the leadership positions within ANSI, chairs and vice chairs of policy advisory groups, program oversight committees, member forums, collaboratives, and workshops. So much of what's accomplished at ANSI is due to their efforts. And finally, a tremendous thank you to all of you, our members, partners, and contributors, for your participation and support. It is ANSI's great privilege to serve you. Thank you for listening. And now, Phil and I would be happy to take your questions.